Some things in life begin very, very difficult. And last night was one of those nights. My wife and I had finished putting our older children to bed. And after I finished reading a story in my older boy's room, and they were asleep, I walked into the room where my wife and the baby were, and my wife told me, "You gotta turn the lights on right now. Something's not right with the baby." We have a 13-month-old, 14-month, somewhere close to 14 months. I'm like, "What do you mean? Turn the light on." I said, "Why would I turn the light on? He's sleeping." She said, No, turn the light on." And she picked him up out of his crib. And my children to me are worth more money than the world could possibly offer. Really anything. My children are the most precious thing to me. And I hear his breathing. It's labored. It's periodic. It's not normal. And every breath that he's taking is coming with such a strong sound, honking sound. And I right away say, "We need to go to the hospital," because I'm anxious, and I've never heard of anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. And man, the adrenaline was going. I immediately called my friend and doctor. I asked him, "What should we do? Do we go to the hospital?" And he says, "Yes, go to the hospital." "Okay, but we have kids. How are we going to leave the house? They're not old enough to be here by themselves." And Baruch Hashem, I have an amazing sister that lives in our neighborhood very close to us. So I call her at about 10 o'clock at night, 10:15. I say, "I need you to come to my house immediately. Baby's not breathing well. I got to get to the hospital." And she's, "Okay, I'm going to come as fast as I can. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Thank you so much." So we're rushing around trying to find the right things. I asked my friend, thank you Hashem, that one of my best friends is a doctor. I asked him, "Could you call the hospital and let them know that we're coming?" He says, "Yes." And he says, "Tell me a little bit about the breathing." We tell him a little bit about the breathing. And he says, "I think you guys could drive there yourselves. Unless if you see that he isn't getting any good breaths, then you could get there with your own car. You don't need an ambulance." So we're running, getting the baby in the car, get to the hospital. And, it actually was hard to get to the hospital. There was difficulties of this adds to Hashgacha Pratis. I didn't even think about this. There were difficulties in finding it. The Google Maps didn't send us to the right place exactly because there was some construction. And we went to this particular hospital because this is the best one. The Children's Hospital in Wauwatosa said to go there. It's about 12 minutes away. So it's adding to the time, an extra 4 or 5 minutes trying to find it. I'm constantly saying, "Wife, how's he doing? How's his breathing?" She says, "I'm looking at it. It's okay." And when we get there, Baruch Hashem, they immediately take him. They immediately are checking his oxygen levels and different things like that, and everything's okay. And they tell us, it's croup. I've never heard of croup. My wife had mentioned to me it's probably croup, which is an inflammation in the lungs, which for him it happened to be not in the chest, but in the higher throat. And what that means is that it can be difficult to breathe from that swelling because the airway, the passageway is very small, so a little bit of swelling can block up the air, can block off the ability for a kid to breathe. So it is the right thing to run to the hospital, even though it is pretty common, because there's a few medicines that when they give it to the baby, he's able to pick up and breathe better right away. So they right away get him in, they test him, take his weight. He's not, being his normal playful self. Still all the noises when he's breathing, and we get into the room and they put this mask over him with a certain medicine they say is going to work immediately, but really it's the steroids that help the most, that take 36 hours. And like it works for 36 hours, and then by that time normally the breathing already is better. The mask was a tough circumstance, right? So this mask was like, he was crying, he did not want it in his face. We all had to hold him down and try to calm him down. The nurse, my wife, myself, he was on my body and I was holding his arms down as this medicine, he was inhaling it little by little. It was very hard to calm him down. We tried to show him cute videos, whatever it was, we tried everything. It was whatever it was what it was. He needed the medicine. It needed to be on his face for 4 to 5 minutes. When it finished, as parents, it's very hard, right? Very hard to watch your baby in this state. Your precious little child, that life is so fragile, and there's nothing more that you want than to see him grow up to be a strong, righteous individual. So that finishes, and they're like, okay, but now we have to give him the real medicine, which is steroids, and it was oral medicine. And it happens to be that our baby is not good with oral medicines, that we have dealt with many times. If he doesn't want it, he's not going to let it get in his mouth, or he's going to throw up. She's like, no, we have to do it, otherwise we're going to have to give it to him through a shot. And we also didn't want to give him a shot after all the stress that he went through. Said, okay, we'll try the oral medicine. But he was so worked up from the breathing mask that trying to give him the oral medicine was a vain effort the first time. Gave him a little bit, he swallowed a tiny bit, the nurse tried again, and the second time he threw it all up. So imagine, our stress levels, but thank God we knew that the first medicine was already in him. They said, okay, we'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll try again. Let's just try to calm him down. Well, they're putting this little thing on his foot to measure his oxygen and his pulse and different things like this on his toe, on his big toe with a little flashing red dot. And he doesn't like it. He's constantly trying to pull it off. And he's upset about it. So I'm trying to find what way can I calm him down with this thing. And eventually he rips it off, and a doctor comes in and says he's not holding it. And in order to calm him down, maybe I could walk around with him a little bit. She said, yeah, that's important because we've seen that his oxygen's okay. So for a little bit, if you want to calm him down before he takes the medicine, you could walk around with him. You could hold him. So I'm walking around, and eventually they come back, and we try once again to give him the oral medicine, and he gets most of it. And they say that's fine because the amount that we give is more than what they actually need. We expect that some of it might be spit out. Whatever it is, it's all good. So he takes the steroids, and now we got to be there for a total of 2 hours. He's got to be monitored for 2 hours. But it's so hard. The thing on his foot, I try to find clothes to put over his foot, a blanket. He doesn't like it. How do I calm him down? He can't fall asleep there, and I'm supposed to leave him monitored. Eventually he rips the thing off. So the whole thing, and I'm davening to Hashem. My wife's davening to Hashem. I'm showing him videos of the family and pictures and just trying to keep him as calm as I can. Nothing's really happening. I said, maybe we should turn off the lights. We try to turn off the lights. That's not working. He's getting very antsy. He's overexhausted. And eventually, all of a sudden, I noticed that there's a TV. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a hospital. There's a TV. Now, this child is young. He's never watched TV. We'd never show him any videos ever. This is like the first time. We're just trying to, whatever way that we can help our son, we're trying to do. Besides for davening to Hashem. And his breathing is starting to get a little bit calmer. Thank God. But it's like, it's adding to the stress of it. It's just like he can't fall asleep, and he needs to fall asleep. And I realized the TV's there. I was like, oh, you know what? Gabriel, why don't you turn off the light in the room, and we'll put the TV on. Maybe it will distract him, plus it'll give a little bit of light in the room, so maybe he'll feel a little bit less stressed. So I turn the TV on, and no lies, this is the emes, mamish the emes, the channel that we turn on to, okay? So we tried everything. We got there later because of our driving around. Every minute counts to this special moment of Hashgacha Pratis. One may find it silly, but to me it's not. Turn on the TV. It's on Disney Junior. And what's the scene that's playing? It's the end of a show. I don't even know what the show is called. The characters in the show are animals. And it's a little child animal that's sick. And what is the message of the show in this last minute of the show? Literally the last minute, it's like an overview, I guess, of whatever the whole show was. It was this sick little child, and it's teaching the little child that being sick is a normal, okay part of life. As long as you take your medicines and you rest, you'll be better. And the parents were around the kid, taking care of the kid. The parent animals were around this little young dog, and they were taking care of the dog and the little child, almost like a baby dog. They were taking care of it. It looked like it had like little packs on its head, and they just kept repeating the message: as long as you rest, as long as you take your medicines, it's a normal part of life to be sick and to get better. And then the final scene was the little puppy dog jumping back into the, I guess, like the more public room in the house to his parents with the sickness gone. And that's what the screen turned to at about 1 a.m., right before 1 a.m., as this show was ending. Almost like Hashem was telling to us as parents, it's a normal part of your life that a child could have croup. It could be scary, but as long as your child gets the right medical care, and as long as your child rests, he's going to be just fine. He's going to be even happier than when he first had the sickness. You know, I felt that moment, and for only a certain amount of time the TV was distracting enough for him. He does not love looking at a TV screen as a almost 14-month-old, maybe he's 14 months old. But the TV worked for a little bit of time. It ended up playing like a Mickey Mouse show. I don't even know what the Mickey Mouse show was about. Oh, I do remember. It was about some cars and them. Mickey Mouse made a bigger car that if you put your cars through it, it was supposed to make the cars even better than they were before for some sort of a parade, to be special for this parade that people were going to be watching. And it's funny because this actually was also a story of Hashgacha Pratis, I guess. And what ended up happening was the chipmunks played around with this big car machine that he made that they would put their cars in, thinking they were going to make it better. But what ended up happening was, instead of making it better, it made the cars goofy. Each one of the cars in their own way, instead of being faster, stronger, each one represented the characters in their cars. So Daffy Duck's was like walking around like a duck instead of having wheels, and this one was I don't remember what they all were. One was like hovering, must have been like a flying animal, whatever it was. And they still had to go to this parade, but with their silly cars, and their silly cars seemingly messed up the whole parade, right? So this difficulty was seemingly making them embarrassed, and right, was just wrecking the whole place. And then ultimately, though, within that, so to speak, sickness of the cars was the cure. And it ended up being that each one of those cars, whatever damage that was created, the the unique ability of the car that was not expected ended up being what they needed to save the day. And I felt as I was watching this that a TV generally in Jewish and especially Kabbalistic ideology is something made out of is a klipa. It's concealing godliness. That's not to say that there's not certain shows perhaps and certain ways to utilize the technology extremely positively, which of course there are amazing ways to do that. But it takes mindfulness and it takes proper choices. And for some they avoid it completely, but for sure it takes mindfulness and proper choices in the right times and not overusage and bad habits, etc. in order to realize that Hashem is the one that is bringing even this entity of a TV into being. And I couldn't help but feel that this was a moment that Hashem, that God was revealed even through the specific times that Hashem put specific programs on the TV when used at the right times and appropriately. As the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, that everything in the world was created for Hashem's glory. So this is my opportunity to share how even in this difficult time, where there was a fear and an anxiety about the health of my child, which we love so much, and we're so grateful to Hashem, and I constantly say praises and thanks to Hashem for bringing in this beautiful son of ours, that even in this time, Hashem wanted us to feel and to know through our efforts that He's here with us in this room, this small hospital room with only a few resources to try to keep our baby happy as he's recovering from a scary moment. And now I'm realizing as I finish up that in this video, the one with the dog, in part of its healing where it said that you should rest. So the dog, actually the little puppy dog, had a screen in front of his face. He was watching something in his bed as he was resting. And now I realize, it actually makes me kind of emotional all of a sudden. That little puppy dog is like my little baby, that we placed the screen in front of him just in order to help him calm down and to get through the harder moments of the sickness. And it helped. It wasn't what cured him, but it helped the time pass by to make it less harsh.